Hello, hello. Flitzanu. Um, there's a big buzz going on the internets about formaldehyde and ecigs. Many other people have already made videos. Many people have written articles. People are addressing this. So I'm not doing anything new or groundbreaking in talking about this. There are plenty of other qualified people that have made videos and said things about this, but I just wanted to make sure I do my due diligence and get this out there as well. Basically, the bigger point of the story is no one is adding formaldehyde to e-juice. It's not necessarily saying that in the article, but just in case anyone has this weird misconception that that's the case, it's not being added. It's not, liquid that's going into juice. It's not there. What's happening in this study that was published that was horrible is basically they're heating a coil to very high temperatures, well beyond what most people are going to be vaping at, and also well beyond normal use because they're burning everything. Formaldehyde is basically being created because they're burning the coil. That's part of what happens with tobacco cigarettes, is that there's combustion and it's creating formaldehyde. It's not so much that it's being added in. It's just a natural chemical process that happens under these circumstances. And you can Google that. I'm not gonna go into detail about all that and how it happens and whatever, but some of this stuff gets really frustrating. It's as bad as the whole antifreeze thing that that started 6 years ago, that e-cigs have the juice is made with antifreeze, and it's just dumb, and it's getting annoying that we have to keep defending ourselves against these ridiculous stories that throw people into a tizzy and freak everybody out and unjustly cause all this crazy dissension, and it's just misinformation. But anyway, so just a very preliminary search. I hit a few websites and dug out a few snippets of information, and a lot of this, you're probably not going to care. I mean, it's the bigger point of this is, like, stop freaking out. Don't dry burn your coils. Don't dry burn your coils at very high voltage. Some people have said, they've talked about wattage should have played into what they're talking about with their study. But essentially, if you're building a very low ohm coil, sorry, this thing keeps beeping. If you're building a very low ohm coil, and you're running it at mega high wattage, chances are you fucking kidding me? Sorry, I'm turning off closing my browser. Chances are you're not running it past 3.7 volts. The wattage, the voltage versus your ohms, your resistance on your coil, is determining the wattage. And most people doing sub-ohm coils are not going much past 3.7 to 4.2 volts. I say that because I tend to be a high voltage vapor rather than a high wattage vapor, because I've always been a fan of 5 volts and up. However, I don't dry burn my coils, and you build responsibly, and you don't burn everything and inhale burning smoke and fire. Anyway, I'm sorry, I'm getting off topic, and I feel like I'm babbling because it's frustrating and I'm flustered and it's annoying. But anyway, the more I read about it, the more it was just like, really? But anyway, so formaldehyde. What is formaldehyde? It comes from a natural process. It's a chemical reaction. It's molecular stuff and science. So go look that up. The risks that are associated with formaldehyde is basically what this statement is from this website. Its potential to act as an electrophile and act with macromolecules such as DNA, RNA, and protein to form reversible adducts or irreversible crosslinks, which makes it a conventional tissue fixative. What they use it to embalm dead bodies. A conventional tissue fixative means that it kind of keeps things from changing around and decaying and dying with a dead body is more or less what that's kind of saying. The problem is, though, it reacts with proteins and reacts, DNA and RNA, and that's kind of where some of the carcinogenic effects come into play. That it's this whole cross-linking thing with DNA molecules or DNA proteins and stuff. You can Google that if you're a science nerd. I'm not a big science nerd. Most of that goes well over my head. So if you're into science jargon and you understand all that stuff, then by all means go look into it. But that's, it's basically it changes the way that your human cells, your human cells, because that's what you are. It changes the way that your cells are behaving. It affects them on, they're all made out of proteins. DNA is made out of proteins, RNA is made out of proteins. So it affects the way that they behave. And so essentially cancer, which sounds crazy, cancer is just your cells keep growing and growing and growing, and they're not being regulated properly by your body. They're growing out of control, and they overgrow, and that's why they create tumors and bulges and things like that. And so it's basically your body stops behaving the way it's supposed to. The design that's in your code, the cells just go awry. So that's what this whole carcinogenic effect is with the formaldehyde, is that it can affect these cells on a very, very basic level and cause them to react badly and become cancer. So anyway, and again, I'm not an expert, and I'm not trying to talk like I know what most of this really means. Again, this is just kind of, my very basic understanding of how this stuff works. So not trying to be an expert, not trying to tell you that I know all this stuff and I know more about it than anyone else, because I don't at all. I very basically understand these concepts, and that's really all I'm trying to say. It's just kind of what this is doing. But so again, back to the thing. Acute formaldehyde exposure produces mainly mucosal irritation of the eye and upper respiratory tract in humans. And long-term exposure leads to the production of nasal tumors in rodents. Formaldehyde also causes pulmonary function impairment and asthmatics reactions in sensitized individuals. If you're an asthmatic, you're probably not going to be a smoker. I mean, again, that's the generalization, and maybe you are, but a lot of times people have impairments with their breathing, such as being heavily asthmatic or something like that. Like, they're very sensitive to these things, and they're likely not going to be smoking or doing something that's going to be causing irritation to their lungs or to their mouth or to their nose or anything involved in respiration. They're probably not going to be doing something that's going to be harming that. So, but if you are asthmatic, formaldehyde inhalation can cause a more severe reaction. Could, doesn't mean it does, could. So anyway, and the last bit, under atmospheric conditions, because formaldehyde does exist naturally. I mean, it again, it's a thing. Look it up. Under atmospheric conditions, formaldehyde is readily photooxidized by sunlight to carbon dioxide, meaning sunlight can break down those molecular bonds, and it stops being formaldehyde and becomes carbon dioxide. In the absence of nitrogen dioxide, the half-life of formaldehyde is approximately 50 minutes during the daytime. In the presence of nitrogen dioxide, this drops to 35 minutes. So it does have a very short half-life. It doesn't exist in the environment terribly long before it's broken down. Now, people use formaldehyde in foods. They use it in cosmetic products. They use it in medicines. They use it in things. So there are standards for the amount that you can take in. Your body generally breaks it down pretty quickly, especially if you're inhaling it through the nose. Which, again, and I'm not going to say this as a scare tactic, but generally most of the studies that I read, they were directly involved in inhalation through the nasal cavity of formaldehyde, not through the mouth. So you have mucous membranes and things in your nose that help stop a lot of stuff. That's not a science term, but that's, you have hairs in your nose and you have things in your nose that when you're breathing in through your nose, it filters much more shit going into your, into your lungs than breathing through your mouth. So a lot of those studies are done, nasal inhalations, but I'm getting off topic again. I'm sorry. So people that work with it, inhalation of formaldehyde vapors, not vapor, but vapors coming out of, using formaldehyde in plants or embalming, industries that are using it. They have OSHA standards of acceptable limits to be exposed to be inhaling, because your body, again, will break it down very quickly when you're inhaling it through your nose. But anyway, so the OSHA permissible limit, from what I could find on the web, is 0.75 ppm, parts per million. So less than that, it's basically that's a acceptable limit that is not going to kill you, and from their best estimation is not in damaging enough amounts to to do a bunch of harm to your body. Again, that's, who knows, but the studies, basically, they're exceeding this limit. The amount that is, coming out of cigarette smoke is higher than this limit. And the amount that they're saying is, being heated up in ecigs with this test that they did, it's beyond these limits as well. So just, giving you numbers, that's what it's there. So interesting points that I did find, differing information, kind of, not terribly, but, and this video is running long. I'm sorry, I'm babbling. National Cancer Institute states, formaldehyde has been classified as a known human carcinogen by the International Agency for Research on Cancer and as a probable human carcinogen by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. Research studies of workers exposed to formaldehyde have suggested an association between formaldehyde exposure and several cancers, including nasopharyngeal cancer and leukemia. Also, from cancer.org, it states the main way people are exposed to formaldehyde is by inhaling it. The liquid form can be absorbed through the skin. People can be exposed to small amounts by eating foods or drinking liquids containing formaldehyde. Formaldehyde is normally made in the body. Enzymes in the body break down formaldehyde into formate or formic acid, which can further be broken down into carbon dioxide. Most inhaled formaldehyde is broken down by the cells lining the mouth, nose, throat, and airways, so that less than a third is absorbed into the blood. According to the U.S. According to the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission, formaldehyde is normally present at low levels, less than 0.03 parts per million in both indoor and outdoor air. Materials containing formaldehyde can release it as a gas or vapor into the air. Automobile exhaust is a major source of formaldehyde in outdoor air. Now, both of them, actually that one not so much, but the other one, it's talking about formaldehyde being a carcinogen, that there's known association. However, there's a website called formaldehydefacts.org that you can go to. They maybe they're pro formaldehyde and cancer sites are anti-formaldehyde. But just for the sake of argument, what it says is that it is well established in the scientific literature that any potential association between inhaled formaldehyde and cancer is linked only to significant and prolonged exposures to inhaled formaldehyde. Based on the most recent scientific studies, it is unlikely that inhaled formaldehyde is capable of triggering the mechanisms in the body that are necessary to cause cancer of the blood, like a form of leukemia, because inhaled formaldehyde does not get past the nasal tissue because it is quickly metabolized to reach the bone marrow where blood diseases originate. Very different than what the cancer website says. Not in so many words, but still. Nasopharyngeal cancer, which they mentioned on the Cancer Institute site, is a very rare form of cancer that was reported to be associated with exposure to formaldehyde in a study conducted by the National Cancer Institute, which we just mentioned, on 25,000 workers in 10 different plants where formaldehyde was used or manufactured. Of the 10 or so total cases of nasopharyngeal cancer in 4 studies conducted in almost 60,000 industrial workers or embalmers with potential exposure to formaldehyde, 6 came from a single plant. It has now been reported that 5 of these 6 cases were likely due to the workers' previous or post-employment exposures to other known risk factors for upper respiratory tract cancers. So, again, just throwing this out there, I want people to go do some research on formaldehyde, just because you should, just to know what formaldehyde is. Again, it's pretty clear by, the numerous responses to this study that was done that they're burning a coil. They're not really using these devices in a real world vaping situation. They're basically just burning metal and saying that it's producing 3 to 5 times more formaldehyde than a tobacco cigarette. So again, not real world conditions, and not, it's dumb. It's dumb. So that's the moral of the whole thing, is that it's just dumb. But as far as formaldehyde, again, go look it up, Google it, do some research, do some reading, and, just learn some stuff about formaldehyde and just kind of understand what it is and how it's made and where it comes from. And your bodies produce formaldehyde. And again, I'm not saying that it's 100% safe. Yeah, vaping is not 100% safe. Inhaling formaldehyde is not 100% safe, but there's information out there that you can read and make your own risk assessment about whether, if the situation is that we are inhaling formaldehyde, because we inhale formaldehyde every day. I mean, according to most of these things, it's natural and we're probably inhaling it, and it's in the air. So we inhale it, our bodies metabolize it, and it's fine. So until there is real world studies on, actual using ecigs properly, on what amounts of formaldehyde is being created and inhaled, then everybody just needs to kind of calm down. So don't burn your coils. Don't inhale burning metal smoke. If it happens once, it doesn't mean you're going to get cancer and die. So most of these studies, again, are over prolonged exposure to inhaled formaldehyde. So I don't know. These things annoy me, which is why I'm flustered and I'm babbling. But anyway, that's what I have. Formaldehyde. It's the new it's the new antifreeze in ecigs. So thanks for watching. I'll see you soon. Goodbye. Cut.